This podcast was recorded for Upstart, a creative careers festival which took place at locations around the UK in autumn 2025. The Young People's Collective, or the YPC of the V&A Dundee, organised, hosted and produced What the Hell as part of this festival. The podcast represents the personal views of its contributors. We hope you enjoy the show.
Hello everybody, welcome. I just wanted to thank everybody so much for coming to our podcast. It's an absolute honour to host this podcast, What the Hat. And yeah, I think it's an absolute pleasure to have everybody in this room being a part of this conversation and once again contributing to the wonderful Upstart Festival. And I can go on and talking about the absolute honour and privileges and gratitude. And I think it would be incredibly amiss not to say that it's an extreme privilege to be sitting with everyone today, hosting a podcast in the midst of genocide and atrocities happening across the globe in Gaza, Sudan, Congo, and many others. And I think that it really is a privilege for us to be having this conversation and building community and strengthening our creative practices and general skills in order to support each other. We intend for this space an event to demystify creative practices, but also investigate how we can incorporate our values into our practice. My name is Leyla Hussain. I'm 22 years old. I'm a recent graduate. I'm a sculptor, an installation artist, a metal worker, a sister, a daughter, a part member of the community of Dundee. I'm part of a very strong Pakistani heritage. And I think it's so amazing for me to be sitting here in my grey furry hat, and as it represents hopefully the warmth I will continue bringing to this space. And I hope that you can continue bringing the warmth too. But I'm going to pass it over to Pepper to introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Pepper Parkinson. I am a student, a daughter and a friend. I'm a painter, actor and musician, and I am a part of the community through music. And I'm 17 years old. And I thought I should describe my hat because it was so kindly reminded me. I am wearing a miniature, I think, sailor hat that's crocheted. It's white. Yeah. So now that we've introduced ourselves, I think it's time to introduce our guests. First up, we've got SHHE, an artist, musician, and producer. SHHE is influenced by environment and ecology. Her artistic practice explores themes of identity and connection at the intersection between sound, space, and liminal states.
You've never had an entrance like that before.
No rainy hat.
Okay.
Well, Sue puts on her hat. We're going to introduce our next artist, Riah Naief. She's a sound artist and runs Listen Gallery, which is a sound gallery and it's a communal listening space in Glasgow. Her theory and practice of listening is the root of her practice.
We're a family.
Are we doing the hats for now?
Yeah.
Your hat. You didn't describe your hat.
No, but I think that please, yeah, I'm going to ask you my first question.
Oh, jumping ahead. I'm jumping ahead.
I would love to ask you our first question pertaining to the name of the title of this podcast. So yeah, please say either one of you can start, but I want to ask you, and since you're holding the mic here, what the different hats you're wearing, and I'd love for you to describe the one that you're wearing right now on the stage.
Yes, okay. Can you all see it? Ish. Okay, so for people who are not present, first of all, thank you so much for coming. It's so nice to see so many faces that I don't know, and I feel really blessed to be in Dundee. I would say I had an amazing day here. It's been so beautiful, like autumnal day. So I hope you also felt that wherever you are listening in from. Okay, so my hat is quite deep. It's just the one I brought. I wear many hats. I would say I'm a cook, a janitor, an admin person, a director, so many other things, an artist, but also just like a piece of dust, like a dust hat. And then, the one I'm wearing is quite deep to me, and I'll go into it after I describe it visually. It's green, and it has, what are these called? These things that you stitch on? Patches, yeah, it's got a patch that says a swear word, which I won't repeat, but it says, Glasgow, you're a good looking, see you next Tuesday. So this hat actually, it used to be a Von Dutch hat. Does anybody know who Von Dutch is? Okay, so Von Dutch has been recently brought to surface as being a fascist and a right-wing person who was also a fashion designer that came up in the 2000s. So I had this from the 2000s, and obviously it was like very chic, and I loved it. And then I found out this thing about Von Dutch, so I took off that patch and replaced it with this patch that I made in the Barrows Market, which is like in the east end of Glasgow. So I feel this was really important for me because everything I do is really conscious of the kind of fascist or like right-wing ideology that's like the undercurrent of where we are, and trying to think about how we can rebrand that, but not just in an aesthetic way, but with real material change. And I know this is a very like aesthetic example, but yeah, I'm really thinking about how to do those things in the body and in the work that I do. So yeah, it's quite a deep thing to start with, sorry, but we're going to go 0 to 100. Yeah. Okay, is that everything? Yeah. Yeah, okay, pass this in.
Thank you so much. I think I might have misunderstood. I brought lots of hats to try and put on my head at one time.
No, I think you should do that.
Sorry to people in the room. Okay, well, the first one I'm wearing is perhaps the most important. There's the sun on there. It is a navy.
Yes,
did you say navy?
Yeah.
I'm colorblind, so I'm not the best judge.
Navy hat with a bright orange smiling sun, very representative of Dundee, officially the sunny city in Scotland / the UK / Europe. I think I for anyone who's tuning in from overseas, it's definitely in fact come and visit Dundee. Okay, I actually have an order to put these hats on my head, otherwise it doesn't work. In a way, my hair is also a bit of a hat, because there's quite a lot of it. So, okay. All right, first hat. Is a black and very worn out, this is what I refer to as my artist hat. I quite literally live in this hat, and it kind of represents me as an artist, a musician, sound artist, producer, in a way a bit of a researcher as well in terms of how I approach projects. And making music. That's the first one. The second one is a hat that represents Dundee Radio Club, a sonic exploration space, a community that's radio, very new radio platform, which is hosted and produced alongside Becky Clark. It's very new, started earlier this year, supported through Creative Dundee's Community Ideas Fund. This hat does not say Dundee Radio Club because we don't have a merch page yet, but maybe on the way. We did have our first festival earlier this year. We're really looking to do another one. Worm is another brilliant community radio project based in Rotterdam, and we were very lucky as Dundee Radio Club to partner with them earlier this year to do some programme in Utrecht with them. So that's my radio hat. The next one I'm going to put on is... We might be here a while, I'm so sorry. It's a programming hat. This is a little logo for a wonderful festival in Portugal called Semi-Brev. And it's a real treat. I've been able to work with Hostel Field, this brilliant organisation based on the East Coast, to help programme their music festival for the last couple of years. So that's what this hat represents. Almost there. Okay, this is my mountain equipment, environmental awareness hat. So being a musician, often trying to really question my role as a musician. How do you make music and release and tour? Also, whilst considering the environment and the impacts that your role might have. And also it represents another part of my practice, which is I work a lot with field recordings. So I do a lot of underwater recordings, and recording in natural environments. And the final hat is maybe a hat that we should probably all have. It's the I don't work here hat, and it represents all the random jobs that we find yourselves doing and sort of questioning why. And in my practice, that's been literally like, I don't know, at one point hiring portaloos for a show, doing lots of admin bits and these kind of odd jobs that come up that you don't quite expect, and sometimes they're a little bit surprising. And then, of course, my beautiful sunny Dundee hat, which is actually a skate pal hat. It's a brilliant non-profit organisation that exists to support communities throughout Hussain, that links in really beautifully with Dundee's sunshine. All my hats.
Amazing. To be able to witness through this mountain of hats is absolutely wonderful. And it shows that you have put a lot of meaning into everything that you do, both of you. Which I think leads us very well on to our next question from Heather.
Yeah. So we both are obviously sound artists, and we're wondering, what does sound mean to you?
I mean, it's huge of a question for me. I also feel sometimes talking about sound or listening with words is so crazy to me. I think it's such an embodied practice that I find it really difficult sometimes, especially in the English language, But I would say, I think I'll start with listening if it's okay. So for me, sound is something you experience throughout your life, and listening is where you start to maybe piece those sounds together as if they were intentional, and that your life is a soundscape, right? So there's all these things that you go through, and these things aren't background, they're things that are really impactful, and sound is really impactful. My belief system is Sufi. I'm a Sufi Muslim, so we have a real strong connection with sound being quite a spiritual practice, and there's so much about sound that kind of resonates with matter and is matter and very, very real as a material. So I feel, for me, sound is such a huge kind of cosmic and a force of interrelational realities as well. I think for me, the kind of idea of sound being an ever-present thing and our attentiveness being something that we tune into that sound as being really important, and to listen to those sounds. And they could be anything from stories, conversations, music, things of your own thought process, things of your body. Your body is making sound, right? Our breath, our heartbeat. I mean, our heartbeat is the sound that powers our whole body. So it's such a physical thing for me, sound, So I feel, again, it's so huge. And I would also really love to hear how people connect with it, because I think it's so beautiful to learn about people's description of sound as each body, because it is also a very personal experience. Like, what I hear in a soundscape is your torture. Which is my ambient, beautiful music, so it's such an individual experience as well, which is also what is so powerful about the fact that we all share collective sound and listening, but it's so individual to us how we interpret it. But yeah, that's really big. I don't even know if I answered. Yeah.
You definitely answered. I think it's actually so beautiful, like your life as a soundscape. And those different layers and what that means. Actually, maybe kind of a similar, and I wonder if we actually do have quite like a shared ideas on what sound is. I'm so interested in the like distinction between music and sound, but also really thinking about our natural environments. And it's quite a funny one to me, sound, because often I feel like it's the aftermath. Like I think something like 80% of our energy and focus is dedicated to the visual. So sound is always like this secondary, but actually it's the most important and perhaps like the strongest sense. It's the first one we develop. It's the last one that we lose. And similar to what you're saying about all these like connections and harmonies, like hugely inspired by this book, Music in a Landscape of Consciousness, which is effectively talking about how the entire world is sound. But I feel like we've really lost our connection to that. And so I think through my work, I try and make the inaudible audible in a way, so those sounds that we maybe take for granted. And maybe those sounds are actually a little bit harder to come through in a cityscape as well. We're quite lucky being based in Dundee, or quite close to the river, but actually how often can we hear the river take? Because we have traffic, we have people, and we have those channels like city sounds. So I guess with a bit more of a focus on how do you pull out those sounds that we're not hearing, or that we kind of just push to the back of our heads somehow, or our ears.
Yeah, I think it's so like wonderful about because I think when you think sound, you think of like the idea of like something that's being brought to your attention. Like when you say like when we first come out of the womb, we're crying because we want to be heard, and I think that there's such a like idea of like the energy is like slow, and I think that is. I don't know, there's a sense of like personality to the sound that you're talking about, and I think that like you both like have such fascinating perspectives on that. That there's this idea of like what are we like constantly consuming and what are we ignoring, and like what is like if we stop in the hasteness of our lives, what will we discover? And I think that it seems like both of you have become very equipped with that sort of philosophy. And yeah, it's just like wonderful to hear such like passion. I was talking to a friend earlier this week, my friend who actually helped me design the sound for the intro, Amelia. And it was really funny, I was just like talking about dogs and like my next project. And she was like, she just does music for like bands, commercial. Not just, but obviously it's different. And I think that there was sort of an appreciation for the fact that like when you become immersed in the like intimacy of your practice, I think that there's something else that like you don't quite like, you think differently. Like I think that like if you were to just have a conversation with somebody would be like, oh, that's fascinating. But I think there's such a wonderful aspect to your own curiosity, and I think that's wonderful. And I think that like you've kind of described the deconstructing these distinctions made between like sound and music, and you know the sound in yourself, sound in other people, sound in the state that we live in. So I think that like I guess what I'm really curious is if you operate with, you know, this relationship with sound, how would you describe yourselves within your practice? Like, you know, if I would call you a sound artist, like, I'm sure that would be very, like, it could be very generalizing or it could be apt. But I guess, like, because you described this intimacy, I'm really curious about how both of you describe yourselves within your practice.
Yeah, I feel as you're talking, I feel really like nervous also about the time limit, because I feel like I try to talk about this all the time. About your sound experiences.
Yeah.
But okay.
We can be snappy.
Yeah, I'm trying to be snappy, which means I have to think a lot, which I'm not good at.
Well, I guess like if you and to then focus in a more like, was there a moment that you felt comfortable calling yourselves?
Yeah.
Whatever you call yourselves.
This needs a bit of context. So my background is actually, me and my parents were refugees from Iraq. So we came to the UK in the 90s. I was raised in quite extreme poverty growing up, so I wasn't really exposed to the arts. And I would say up until this moment, I don't really think I belong in the arts. And I've never, the only time I went into a museum was by a school trip. That I was really fortunate to go into a museum space, and it changed my life. And I couldn't believe that there was something free and accessible that all my family and friends weren't going to. And I felt so upset that I was like, this amazing thing is just so not part of our community. And so I actually, till this day, don't feel really like I'm part of it, but I really want to be. So everything I'm doing, I'm trying to be part of that. I'm trying to be part of that idea that culture is for everyone. But this also puts into question big things about class, and I'm really aware about class consciousness within the arts. So I feel really nervous about being called an artist, especially because if I told my parents now I'm an artist, they wouldn't know what it meant.
Yeah.
Like still to this day. So it's also crazy to me the privileges of who gets to be called what. But I would say that I believe everybody is an artist, and it's just about, like I said, this exposure, really. And I really want to, if the only thing I could say is that we all have this creativity and it's very innate, then I think that's everything I could say. And it's so important. But yeah, I would describe myself as a sound artist now in confidence, because I want to take that space up. So yeah, I am a sound artist, thank you. But I would also say that I'm definitely not a musician, and I feel really, really passionate about not being a musician, because musicians come with classical training or some sort of undertaking of some learning, which I think is again another barrier. So I feel sound art is very accessible, and I really want to champion sound art as being a really accessible form of art making that we can all access. Yeah.
I didn't study music at university. I didn't go to university. And actually music was the subject I struggled most with at school. I can't read musical notation. And I always found it really strange that someone was asking me to read notes from a page instead of feeling the music. So I'd actually memorize for like music exams at school. I'd have to memorize and pretend I was reading it because I found it really difficult. And so similarly, I actually really struggled with this idea of calling myself an artist or a musician, because I almost thought that you had to go to university to get a degree or for someone to call you that first before you could kind of own it. And it took me, I was 28. That was the age when I decided, actually, I really want to do this full time. I'd always worked full time in other jobs because I never thought I was good enough to do the music part full time, because I didn't possess those qualifications that everyone had always told me that you needed. So in terms of like musician, that's really interesting, I guess, perspectives. If I haven't received any training, I play a little bit of every instrument, but I don't play anyone very well. And I think so much of my practice is led by just a pure curiosity in wanting to learn. And it's the one thing about being at school that I struggle with music, because no one ever mentions sounds to me or different approaches to actually learning about how we might make music or how we might listen to the world. It was always studying certain composers, or it was always like, learning your cadences and all these terms that I just really struggled to sort of keep in my head, because it felt like such a disconnection. I just wanted to feel music, because I think at that age music was like a real escapism for me, so I needed it in a different way. So yeah, I think I was quite late in life, maybe in a way, before I went, actually, I'm doing this, therefore I am this. And I feel like now I don't need anyone to tell me that I might be this or might be that. I just kind of decided to own it in a way.
Yeah.
What instruments do you play now?
Actually, I work a lot with underwater microphones, which I do consider to be an instrument, hydrophones, and contact mics, and actually finding something musical in the mundane. I also play a little bit of synth. My instrument at school was drums, and I chose that because I thought I wouldn't have to read the notes from a page. But it turns out that's actually how you have to play drums. You have to play drum music. But I could do that, so I had to make up these like drum fills, like strawberry jam, to remember them. But yeah, so I was, I guess, a drummer at school. I picked up a guitar when I was sort of 16, 17. Say Awards was in Dundee last night. Katie Thompson and I went to the same school and actually was really hugely inspired by someone playing guitar that was a girl and being very awesome at it. And so, yeah, I think the kind of confidence to pick up these instruments throughout my life. Recently I'm into modular synthesis, and I did not learn that or study that, and have like actually kind of quite a limited technical ability before I started getting into modular. But yeah, just through really wanting to learn, but often starting from the beginning and just going from there.
Yeah, I know this sounds kind of party, but like what you both described is like believing in yourself, like maybe not having the immediate resources or like privileges to do so, but you did it. You were like, oh, this is what I'm going to choose to do. I think it's really interesting because obviously we've asked you a lot about yourselves within the structure of sound, art and music. But I think something that the next question that I think I'll be really interested to hear about is the question that I think Pepper is going to ask.
Yeah, so it's interesting the way you describe like the difference between like being a musician and being a sound artist, and feeling like it's not accessible in a way because you haven't been like maybe classically trained, or like being able to read music, because I definitely, in my opinion, or at least what I've seen, is people often then go off to like these conservatoires if they're like to go and do that, and then they go and become musicians, and they have this network and they know who people are. And so seeing as you both haven't really come from that like background of being classically trained, how do you find like networking and pulling favors within sound art? Like what's your experience behind that, and how has that got you here now?
I feel like networking has a bit of a strange connotation these days. It's almost like a dirty word somehow.
Yeah.
I like to kind of unpick it a little bit and think about what is a network. It's just connections to each other, right? But if you kind of flip it a little bit and think of also like underground like root systems, like my ceiling. Okay, so let's think of a network is that everything is feeding everything else. So nothing exists in isolation, and so that's the power of a network, right? But often I think we're led to believe that networking is going to mean handing out 10 business cards in under 5 minutes and then go home. But yeah, there's something, it's kind of why I love Dundee so much, because Dundee is the first city that I've ever lived in. I grew up in quite a small village. And Dundee was this like massive metropolis that would look over to and go, I can't imagine it was somewhere so big. But it wasn't until I moved here and I started working at Dundee Contemporary Arts, and it was the first time I was working alongside people that had several jobs, and lots of those were creative jobs, and they were doing a bit of producing on the side, or they were in bands, or they were sculpting, or they were doing amazing creative things. And I think that's the point where actually it feels like there really truly is like quite a supportive network in the city, where people genuinely feel like they want to help each other out to make things happen. So yeah, I like to think of the network a little bit more like that, like what's happening underground, but also this like strength and power of all working together and moving together.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. So that's it. There's no more, no comment. But I also just want to go back to the idea of like when we discovered this thing and how late, you know, I'm going to be 36 and I really only just discovered that I want to really be pushing the sound out thing at 35, you know? So it's also so impressive to me how young you both are and how many young people, hopefully this will inspire to take up space within culture and to really curate what culture looks like for them. So I just want to big you all up again, because it's just, it feels such an honour to experience that, you know, not having experienced that in my life. And yeah, if we can start it younger and younger and younger, we can say sweet babies, you know, like, what do you want to curate?
I think that's something that for me, like, was, like, obviously, like, just getting to be part of the YPC. I mean, I was scared that, like, I was, like, here maybe like when I was like 16, too afraid to like say anything or do anything. And I think it just took the right people believing in me to be like, oh, I can take up space. And fast forward, I've gotten to make a billboard and be able to speak to wonderful artists and be collaborating with wonderful young people, other young people. Like, I think that that's like something that's so astounding for me, is that like, I think I also struggled to call myself an artist or anything. Like, I grew up like being told that like art isn't productive, you know, like you have to get a job because you're working class, you have to like keep going and like sustain yourself. Like, it's a privilege to do that. But I think that for me, like, it's the passion, the joy, something that's so beautiful is that like, yeah, I might not be minted, but I've got this beautiful community around me, and I've become somebody that's so much more. And I don't think that that's a bad thing. And I think that it's just so wonderful to have these conversations and be sat like amongst such creative, wonderful people, especially my co-host who's only 17.
So young.
Yeah, like, that's crazy. She thinks so. But that's the, like, it's the thing is that like it's about opening the doors for other people.
That's
like,
the energy we need.
Yes. Thank you.
Like I think that this is like I remember yesterday we were opening for our billboards and I was watching everybody like do all these things and I was like, this is crazy. Like people like to sorry, I have to not swear. Like, what's the word? Disrespect Dundee. And I think that it's very fair to, like, when you're raised in a city or a small city or, like, wherever, like, hole we all crawled out of, I think that it's very easy to be like, oh, like, I need to get out of here, I need to do this, and imagine some sort of, like, utopia. Sometimes you do need to get out, change needs to happen. But I think for me, like, and, you know, like, my life is going to continue changing. But like, I think it's such an honour to be able to cultivate such a beautiful community. And also, yeah, like, pick up ourselves. Like, that's what I was saying to Pepper before we started. I was just like, it's absolutely amazing that you, like, we get to do this podcast. And especially at 17 years old, you could say that you were hosting a podcast with the BNA Dundee. Yeah. I feel like we should get, like, a round of applause just for that. But yeah, like, I think, and I'm sorry, I need to get on to the next question. But I think
the community thing is really...
no, but like, that's the thing is that like, I think it takes like believing in each other and like also fighting for each other and taking action and like, it's like politicized, it's like it's everything. Like, I think that, I mean, I remember saying yesterday that like, I never thought that I would be able to even like go to art school, never mind be where I am now. And yeah, I think that like, but also like, I think that something I've learned is things are not linear. I think that you can lose hope 1 second, and the next minute you're sitting on stage doing a podcast at the beginning.
But I think also it's really important to say that community isn't a passive thing.
No.
It takes a lot of labour. And to bring the context into what I experienced, you know, I run Listening Gallery by myself as a volunteer. So I've done that for 5 years because of funders being completely, in my eyes, flawed. And, you know, it's I could go on and on about how I think, you know, Scotland and the UK is severely Islamophobic, severely racist, severely out of date, but that's another day for a longer chat. But I would say, you know, I was really lucky to grow up in a council block where my parents were out at work and the woman above and the woman below looked after me, and I used to run between the floors, right? So it was communal living, and I really was so aware that actually the things you share within your community is your network, it is your resource, and that's not something you can sleep on. You have to be really resourceful and say what you need, and if people can't give it, cool, you've got to up and go and find it else.
Exactly, yeah. I think that like I was thinking through things when you were talking there about like everybody wants a village, but nobody wants to be a villager. But also, like, I think that, like, you have to, like, sometimes it's uncomfortable. Sometimes it's, like, conversations you don't want to have. Sometimes it's about, like, a sort of, like, having to avoid this, like, sort of politeness because you need to, like, fight there to be there for each other. I think that, like, when you, exactly, like, community is not a passive thing. And, like, I've only experienced the creative world shortly, but, like, it's not something that you like take sitting down. I think that you have to be there for each other and like be each other's strength and recognize each other's potential and abilities, and like commit. And I think that like it's sharing resources, it's feeding each other, it's telling each other when is enough. It's
also allyship.
It's allyship, solidarity.
Because 100%, I'm telling you now, I would not be able to do this. You know, it wasn't for the people vouching for me and having and they're huge. That network is huge, you know, and they're the ones who keep it going because I've tapped out almost. You know, like, and they're the ones that are like, no, we need this space. You know, Listen Together is the only art space run by a person of colour in Scotland.
Yeah.
Like, that's insane, you know, considering how big the community is here. So it's also, we're so behind, you know, we're so behind. And if it wasn't people rooting for me, holding that space up for what it stands for, the representation it needs to stand for, you know, I wouldn't be able to do
Again, like, it's people, like, believing in you. And I think that, like, obviously belief is not just, like, a belief is not passive thing. And I think for me, like, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for specific members of the VNA learning team, or if it wasn't for my brother, if it wasn't for my friends, if it wasn't for my enemies who are plotting against me so I can show them I'm going to win. Because trust me, babe, I'm winning. It's that, like, I think that, like, it's just that, like, and I mean, it's why I made the work that I have, is that, like, it's because I believe in something, but that isn't just something that is, like, something that's happening in the background. It's something that I fight to do every day. And yeah, it's really funny actually. My next question, I think so you have something to say?
I was just about to say that's why support for YPC is so important, right? Because you get that opportunity to both be like learning how to be building and shaping that community within YPC, but also then opportunities to do things like this, which is amazing. And actually, one of the things I feel like I didn't have opportunities to do when I was at school and growing up, and it's so amazing to see. I've got like such a lovely history with YPC. When VNA opens, I was invited through one of the first situations, I guess, the very first situation of YPC to perform as part of VNA's opening day, and then I've been invited back to do some workshops, and it's been so lovely to see, like, throughout 6 years now, all the different iterations of YPC, about how, like, you've really grown that community. It's so brilliant, and it's also why it's so important that it continues, right?
I think it would be really nice for Pepper to talk a bit about, like, you know, I guess, like, I think that's important for me because, like, obviously I think that I can speak for Scotland. It's that, like, I really would love to hear, like, what this community has been for you and this opportunity, because you've been here for a while too.
I've been here for a while, so I joined 2 years ago and I unfortunately had to pause coming to IPC, but I rejoined in August this year, and I've definitely realised how great YPC is for, like, a career in the, like, arts, because it kind of, I definitely know when you go to secondary they're like, okay, so you have to go to uni and that's it, and it's kind of, like, terrifying, because if you're like, well, I don't really know what I want to do, it feels like there's just one path. But I feel like since coming to YPC I've kind of realised, actually, wait, there's tons of different paths to get me here. I don't just have to go that one way. And I think that's really good. I've also met lots of great people, and it's been really good to kind of see how, firstly, like, to just hear about other people's experiences within the arts, but also to learn different skills that you, like, have to learn for uni. And it's kind of like you're prepped for that already, so you kind of have, like, a little bit of a taster. Okay, so this is what I'll be having to do for uni if I do, say, go on to do, like, art, but also just, like, what you have to do afterwards. So I think it's really good that YPC is running for that.
I think I'm just, like, really grateful that you can say that, because I think that, like, YPC has thank you, Julie, for the 10 minutes ago. I don't know. I think that something that's really important for me to say is that, like, it's not always happy-go-lucky. I think that we've all discovered that when it's creatively, we're just going through life. And I think it's an important reminder that there's sacrifices that, like, we've had to make, and there's exhaustions that we feel, especially, like, I don't know, like, it's bouncing off of what Riah said, that especially when you're a marginalised person, a person of colour, especially queer people of colour, there's so much, like, we don't exist, again, like you said, so about, like, community is that we don't exist in isolation. Like, we live in the context of the world. YPC is working in the context of the world. You guys are working in the context of the world, especially, like, has been mentioned, like, there is right-wing things happening in Dundee. There's xenophobia, there's transphobia, there's racism, and that reflects so even in the industry. And I think that, like, every industry, because I think that's important to remember, is that, like, when we are working with people, for people, with people, against people. Like, I think that it is important to, like, mention that, because it can be exhausting and tiring. And I don't know, I think that, like, hopefully it's moments like these and conversations like these to give energy and to, you know, continue fighting the fight, but also being like, giving a wake-up call, just being like, oh, we need to do it together. And especially those of us that have more of the resources, you should be at the front of the line. But yeah, I think that
also the space to have these things happen, right? And conversations get to chat and listen to each other.
Yeah.
It's so nice, and also a space where, and you kind of described it with YPC, where you're actually encouraged to work together, but you're not told to be in competition with one another. Because I find that's been my experience of working in music, and actually in lots of things at Cardiff that you're sort of taught, or you're led to believe that actually there's not enough for everyone, so it's you or them, and there's not enough funding, so if you're going to apply for that, don't tell this person, maybe don't work together too closely, don't share this and don't share that.
Yeah.
Because that is kind of the system that has been in place, where we're led to believe it is the only system that could work, which is so untrue, right?
Yeah.
Because we're all benefiting and we're all sharing and we're all moving forward together, and of course there's enough for everyone. But yeah, where are the spaces to actually sit and talk through that?
Definitely.
Yeah.
I think this is the strength of collectives, that we get told this all the time, is that, like, one, we get to encourage each other, like, having bounce ideas off of each other, but also, like, there's a strength in, like, when we do things, we do it as a collective. So there is no, like, sort of, like, one thing put on one person, you know? Like, obviously, like, we can talk about hierarchies and so on, but yeah, there is a strength in that, because we're not in competition with each other, we're doing it together, encouraging each other, we're building that network, and because we are, like, that's the intention. It's never, like, it's not a false promise, it's a material reality that we are working together to make something, and that we'll be there for each other in the context of our collective. And I think that is, I mean, I think it's beautiful, and I think that, like, often people will be like, oh, Leyla, like, you're doing so-and-so for so-and-so. And it's like, oh, I'm doing this with my collective, with the wonderful amount of other young people that I get to be proudly sharing the platform with. And the thing is that, like, it's going to change and look different. I might not be in it forever, but I think I have the absolute honour to listen and to be listened to. And I think that, you know, I think that it represents the sonic conversations that we've been having, is that it's all about slowing down and listening. And I think that is just, like, magnificent. And to be listened to be honoured, to have my sound honoured, I think is absolutely spectacular. You know, to have my voice not just heard, but platformed. To not just, you know, Pepper's voice to be heard, but platformed. You know, because we get to say it. We get to say the things, like the soundscapes that that you guys have been field recording or sat by, the things that have been ignored can't come to the surface. And I think that oftentimes young people are neglected because, you know, there's this assumption that there's not much to offer. But, you know, I think that's something wonderful in this conversation, is that, like, you guys are once young people and you flourish into absolute, they're wonderfully talented people, and you'll continue to. And I think that, like, that's so exciting that, you know, we've got to share the stage with you guys.
This is so nice.
Yeah.
I think it's ending soon. I think we're all sad about it. If it's okay, like, who Listen Gallery is for? Because I think there's something
I think that
about
that's one of our last things is, do you guys have shows? You know, I think, like, please talk to me about Listen Gallery. Please talk to me about the things that, like, you want to be heard.
I've got no words. Always when I need to speak, I don't know. It's impossible to keep it going. I can't do it.
Yeah, this is the reality of it, though. This is the reality.
Yeah, I really don't know what to say. There's so much online. There's so much online that you could. That I've really tried to make the website an archival resource so you can see what's happened there. And it's really hard to describe the community in words because there's so many people behind it. There's so many things that happen within that space. And I think the bottom line is I'm trying to think about radical change through listening. And there's so many artists that contribute to that, and people and communities, and it's so dense. And Listening Gallery is a space to explore that. It's a space to experiment through that. And I guess what else can I say except for that I'm really disappointed in Creative Scotland, it's just 5 applications rejected, just constant back push from them. I think the problem with Listening Gallery is that it's too outside of the institutional bubble, and I'm trying to do things with criticism, but my criticism is never to say burn it all down. That's a fine outcome, but I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is there could be many ways. There could be many ways, which is really annoying because I don't allow other ways for things to happen. And unless you're kind of part of this liberal agenda, which I'm really not interested in, not because it's invalid, but because I can't resonate with it, and I'm resonating with something else that is charged and rageful and political, and it might not be right, but it should be given space. And I feel I'm always shouting for space to listen. And the people who show up are the ones who are shouting with me, basically. I don't know. It's in Glasgow. I want to do more things outside of Glasgow because it's the central belt. We know they take up too much space. So I'm trying to get out as well. But it's just super nice to come out of that and speak about it with you lot because I really the thing about the competition is it resonates so much with me. I really believe in abundance, and I really believe in the ancestors of this land and the ancestors of my land and your land all coming together, and they're creating a future. And that future is huge and powerful, and we all have it, but we're being dumbed down to think that we don't. So I really believe in that. How are we doing for time? I'm doing some now, a few more minutes.
Wow.
Soon.
You're welcome in Dundee anytime.
That's something as well. Sometimes it feels rather than it should be to get people to Dundee. I think also it's so true, these connections between cities as well. Come on, Scotland, we can be working better together and more together. And actually, I did want to do one shout out to this really brilliant Creative Dundee blog. I had to take a note because I don't want to get this title off. It's you should read it if you've not checked it out already. Disrupting Systems of Power, How Artists and Communities Can Lead the Change. And it's written by artist Aileen Angus-Dorn-Lees. And in it, she shares a Nina Simone quote, which is kind of looking at the, role of artists. And Nina Simone asks, how can you be an artist and not reflect the times? That to me is the definition of an artist. And maybe there's something to share about, what is our role with everything that's happening in the world, and how do we make space to have these conversations? Because it's actually a lot easier to just be quiet about a lot of these things. And it's a little bit easier. I find often people are like, the political and the art side is very separate, keep them separate. But it's actually really hard to make work and not respond to what's going on. And actually, I think that's a really healthy thing to be able to make work in that way and talk about it in that way. I often work overseas in quite politically challenging environments. I share that work often with underwater microphones, hydrophones, and often they're in countries where there's a water shortage or there's huge water pollution. And that can be recording a hydroelectric dam in Iraq where there's a critical water crisis, and trying to make a piece of work in response to that, and actually realising that it's also part of my role to platform the truth of what's happening in other environments and other countries. And also, it's also part of my role to share my platform, to raise the voices of people and communities that don't have similar platforms. So I think there's something there about, why these spaces are so important to be sharing for others as well. I'm talking about protesting, getting involved, and just quickly, if there's time to share. I had not grown up in a very political environment. I wasn't really encouraged to get involved in politics. I'm sure one way or another, like, we're often discouraged from doing this, especially when we're making music or we're trying to release something commercially. And it wasn't until I went to Egypt, I was really lucky. It was part of a project which was charting the rise of the Mediterranean in Alexandria. Alexandria is a city that's destined to be under the tide line, and this connects all of us. Like, Dundee is also predicted not to finish this podcast on a low note, but be under that tide line. We don't do something about this soon, guys. But yeah, so what is the opportunity there to actually be sharing that through sound and through music? And there's something about in Egypt, you're not allowed to protest. You can't even say the word protest on the street. You've got to be really careful. And actually coming back to Scotland and realising in like many ways the privilege of being able to take part in these like demonstrations and to share or lend a voice to others that aren't able to do that. So I think, yeah, especially now, like more than ever in all of the ways, like more of these spaces to listen, but also to be listening out to the others that don't have that voice in the same way, and to platform in all the ways that we can. Listening Gallery is so brilliant, and I'm so glad that you're here also because it's so nice. I don't know if everyone in the room is aware of Listening Gallery, but yeah, it's like exactly the space that we need and we don't have more of. So yeah, thanks.
Yeah, wow, that was very wonderfully put.
That was beautiful, yeah.
Thank you so much.
Mic drop.
Yeah, I think the YPC shares all of those like views and things that all these reflections have been absolutely beautiful. The YPC like to say, you know, free people, free Palestine, Sudan and Congo. You know, the YPC believes in trans rights and all sorts of rights, but action. We listen, we learn, and we take action. And, you know, like you said, community's not passive, and we're definitely not passive. But yeah, I think that I'm going to hand it to Pepper to do our thanks. Yeah.
Yeah, so thanks to our guests for sharing your knowledge. It's been really interesting and insightful to talk to you today. And thank you to our audience for listening and being here. And also thank you to Amelia Sanguinetti for providing our intro sound, and Callum Mackie, our sound. Mackie? I'm butchering these names.
You got it. You're great. Thank you, Callum.
Stand up, Callum.
And thank you to Dundee Radio Club for broadcasting us. And to our YPC members, Leyla and me and everyone else who, you know, and of course to our wonderful learning operations team and audience and media at the VNA. Where would we be without you guys? So I think that wraps everything up.
And thank you to Blair for taking wonderful photos. Guys, doing a great job. Yeah, thank you so much for attending. Yeah, you've done a great job, Pepper. Everybody's done a great job.
Thank you so much for having us. It's been such an honor. Thank you for inviting us here.
No problem. And I hope this isn't the last one.
Yeah, it's the
Same time tomorrow. Yeah, got your regular show on Dundee Radio.
Keep your eyes peeled and your ears open for next time on What the Have.
We really wanted to speak to the audience as well. Sorry, we'll run out of time. Okay, that's fine. We have, but we can stick around for a bit, can we?
No.
No.
No. But you know, if you keep your eye on the Instagram and the websites, maybe next time you can be part of the What the Have discussions. But you know, just means that you have to become invested in the YPC's actions and ongoings. So please make sure to support us and everybody involved. Love you.
Thank you.